responsiveness of TeraTech was superb. I mean, I always got what I asked for or what they told me. The communication with TeraTech was very good. The cost was reasonable for what we were looking for. And while we wanted to be educated on some of the features of ColdFusion, TeraTech was also able to go in and actually fix the immediate problem that we were having.
So if you can introduce yourself and your business and just a few words about what the college does.
My name is Anthony Moore. I work for Lindsey Wilson College, which is a 4-year liberal arts college. It's a private institution. We're a small institution. I am the director of information systems, and the team that I work with supports the college and the mission for their students. We develop in-house systems that integrate with our ERP and various other systems to provide streamlined access to our services to the students. We also provide data to outside organizations such as federal and state government.
Can you tell me about the specific problem you were looking to solve that led you to discover TeraTech?
Every year we experience an influx of students. Obviously, in the fall semester, we find that our system has the biggest activity at that particular time than any other year. And that's compounded by the fact that we are also going through financial audits. So our auditors are hitting these massive financial reports and grinding their way through data at the time that students are coming in. And what we had noticed during this time is that ColdFusion, the memory on the server, was actually spiraling out of control. And so we would start out working really well, but as activity increased at the beginning of the semester, more and more that memory that was allocated to ColdFusion was actually getting used up considerably. And it would actually reach to the point where it could not allocate any more memory to itself. And at that point, we had to actually kill the service. We didn't have to actually kill the server. We stopped the service, and which obviously interfered with what people were doing at the time. And so we knew we had to do something because we were working on a program that's actually going to bring in potentially thousands of more students. And it just wasn't going to do well for us if we hit that benchmark of students coming in if we weren't prepared to handle them. So after researching, I was able to find TeraTech through just some Google searches, talking. I met Michaela on LinkedIn, so I had that sort of connection with him. And so I was able to reach out and speak to them about how to fix this. And so I was able to contact him through LinkedIn and was able to get a response and start running with that.
Can you tell us more about the pain points of not having a solution to this problem?
Pain points for this was the fact that we were interrupting services at a busy time. We have some systems that are transaction critical. For instance, our bookstore. You can imagine a line of students that were standing in line at the bookstore waiting in line to pay for their books and their supplies, and all of a sudden the system goes down. And not only that, but if it was in the middle of the transaction, we had a situation where there might be a possibility of a transaction to be corrupt. Although we had programmed for that and allowed for rollbacks in that situation, it's never a good thing for your system to go down in the middle of a transaction. So, we had some systems like that. Also with ColdFusion, we were allowing people access into the dining center, other facilities like the wellness center. So anytime that the system went down and that service was interrupted, we have students standing around, and their experience with Lindsey Wilson College is just not that great. And so technology is one of those benign things. As long as it's working, everybody is fine. But the minute it messes up, it's a terrible experience for everybody. And that's exactly what we wanted not to happen with our students. They wanted, particularly at the first of the year, you're struggling as a freshman, possibly trying to navigate your way around your classes and the campus, only to find out that you can't get in to eat, or you're in the bookstore and standing in line for 30 minutes when it should have taken 10 minutes.
So how often was the problem occurring?
When the students would come in the first semester, there was a lot of activity. But even after that first bit of activity during the first several weeks of the semester, we would also be running along just fine for a few weeks. But eventually that would catch up with us. And the memory would reach that point where it could not allocate anymore, and we would have to kill the service. So it was almost something that we had to monitor. I don't want to say constantly, but we certainly had to be mindful of it constantly. And whenever services became slowed and we would get phone calls, we know exactly what would happen if we weren't keeping an eye on it, or if we had gone into the ColdFusion administrator had turned on some automated alerts. Sometimes the system was so slow they wouldn't kick that alert to us.
Did you try or consider any other options before you went with TeraTech?
We looked online. I cannot recall the services off the top of my head. There was a company, I want to say maybe Fig Leaf or something of that order, that actually had some courses. We were looking to educate ourselves. And so I think this particular company had some classes that could set that we could attend and learn how to do some of these things ourselves. We also looked at a particular contractor whose name I can't recall. And we also looked at TeraTech, and we felt like that working with TeraTech was our best option.
Why didn't you use the other solution you investigated?
Number one, cost is an issue for us. Obviously, we're a small institution where we've got a limited budget time frame. We needed something done now. So we decided to back off that idea. The consultant was also, the issue was cost. And so when I chose to go with TeraTech, number one, I found that the responsiveness of TeraTech was superb. I mean, I always got what I asked for or what they told me. So when I reached out to TeraTech and I was told that, I would contact you on this date and this time, it was spot on. I never had to worry about it. Everything that we talked about was always written up. Meeting minutes were passed along to me, so I knew exactly what was discussed, if there were prices and all that. So the communication with TeraTech was very good. The cost was reasonable for what we were looking for. And while we wanted to be educated on some of the features of ColdFusion, TeraTech was also able to go in and actually fix the immediate problem that we were having, and sort of delay the education to some other point when it was more reasonable for us to participate in a educational setting for this. So I think all the way around, it was finances, the fact that the communication was good, and the ability to go ahead and come in and fix our problem.
At the point you decided to work with TeraTech, what were the specific doubts or concerns you had about going ahead?
Working with contractors sometimes is they oversell themselves. And so you don't necessarily get the services that you think that you're going to get. So I was concerned that, even though we had committed ourselves to TeraTech, that maybe, we couldn't get the problem fixed. It may run into more money because of something else that TeraTech would discover that we weren't aware of. And so those were some of the concerns going in, plus the fact that, it was, we were allowing their consultants to come into our system, giving them the security and access to our test and our production environments to make the changes and recommendations that they were suggesting.
Can you describe the specific moment you realized TeraTech was working really well for your college?
I think at first, to be honest, that the communication was maybe just a little bit slower than I had anticipated. But Mike was the particular consultant that we were working with TeraTech, was very good at describing what he was doing. He was giving me information, and we were working in our test environment, and he was able to provide some inside information, provide a report where he showed me exactly the memory allocation in ColdFusion and how he was able to do some processes on our server to allocate a great deal of memory. And then he could actually see and watch that go back down is what we want, because we had never experienced that before. It would always grab that memory and it would sit there, and it would work within that allocated memory for a while until some other conditions came along, and then it would grab even more, and then it would sit there for a while. So we'd never actually seen it go down. And in all honesty, it had, it could go, a couple of months before we'd ever realize any problems with it. But I think it was at that moment that I felt really comfortable when I was actually able to see the results of Mike's labors and being able to make some headway on this particular problem.
Could you share any numbers that demonstrate how successful the college has been with TeraTech?
Well, about the only metric that I have off the top of my head is the memory that's allocated. So we have 24 gig allocated to ColdFusion. And before TeraTech came in, we would obviously reach that point and would begin to experience these problems. Ever since this fix has been implemented by TeraTech, the highest I've seen it is like 9.5 gig. It has never been over that, and we're almost 3 months into that change now, and I've never seen that before. So to me, that's really the only metric that comes off the top of my head, because that's the one that I look at every day. And it just, and it's just reiterated the fact that this is working for us.
Have you noticed a difference?
The fact of knowing that I don't have to worry about this anymore, because usually by the time the phone calls started coming in, we were all over the problem. We would know what was going on, and we just not had any outages whatsoever. And we've gone through the beginning of a spring semester with this implementation. So, we had during our winter and spring semesters, we had that down period where not much activity is going on. But then we had our students come in, and, the first couple of weeks, everybody's gung ho. They're logging in, doing all kinds of things. After that, the campus parties kick in, and, they're not as active on our intranet as maybe they were the first couple of weeks. But we went through the spring without a hiccup. I mean, it was just fantastic. So we really didn't get any phone calls about system outages. The communication's been spot on. We've worked with consultants in the past that have not necessarily delivered on that. And I have felt that every step of the way, I knew what was going on. And I knew that if TeraTech said something, they were actually going to deliver on that.
What would you say to anyone who's sat on the fence right now, not sure whether to work with TeraTech?
Experience with TeraTech. I would definitely go to them again because of the fact that, with the communication, cost effectiveness, the expertise that's given. And it's not just with what we experienced. I actually researched the various videos that this company has done, the publications that they've done, and the ColdFusion conferences that they've attended and actually spoken at. These guys are a class act, and I just feel like that, for the cost, the experience that you get, the communication, that you just can't go wrong with that.